to guide us through the agenda today. I'm Peg Jones. I'm an ASM volunteer in a number of ways, and I was very interested when we saw the email exchanges at the end of last year about the registration fee, and it kind of prompted us to set this up. So fortunately, I'm joined by a number of camp organizer experts in the ASM Foundation staff to help lead the subtopics on our agenda today. And I'm actually, I think, going to tell you who's on the call or who we're expecting today. So these are the people who registered, and not all of them are signed in yet, but hopefully we'll see them soon. So we have a wide variety of locations and time zones. I think I recognized Roger Kreider as a master teacher, which was interesting.
Excuse me, Peg?
Yes?
Roger just emailed me saying that he has a conflict, so
okay.
He will not be able to call in.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Well, so there's some idea of who we have on the call, yes?
This is Chuck Hayes, Peg. I believe Bob Wizlowski is going to join us, and he's also a master teacher.
Oh, that's great. Okay. We were concerned that we wouldn't have that perspective. So this is our first try at doing a webinar for camp organizers. We've done some training on materials camps at leadership days for chapter officers, but not specifically for camp organizers. So I'm curious to see at the end what you think. We have some flexibility with the timing on the topics we were guessing when we set the agenda up, but Aziz Asfahani is on the way to the airport, so I know he definitely has a schedule constraint.
By 1 o'clock, the time, 4 o'clock your time.
Okay, good. Well, I think one of the things that came up when we saw the emails about the refundable registration fee was who sets these policies and how does that happen? So one of the key people on the call today is Bob Hanlon, and he's on the committee that does talk about policies for teachers' camps. And I wanted to turn this over to Bob so he can tell the story of how things happen behind the scenes.
Yes. So I think this question of, where does this come from? Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm really glad everybody's here. Having done the master teacher thing for 3 or 4 years now, it really, I feel like there's a really good organization and information as the master teachers, but also as a camp organizer, I feel like, we're kind of a lot of times trying to figure it out for ourselves. So I think this idea of us sharing with each other what goes on at the camps can be a really huge benefit. So I always wonder, what I could be doing better here in Kansas City with my camp that I'm not, just because I don't know of things that are working well. So I'm really glad that everybody's getting involved with this. But the teachers camp. So we have a teachers camp committee. And I think actually there's about 4 or 5 members of that committee that are on the call today. And that committee addresses issues strictly with the teacher camps. We aren't dealing with the student camps, the teachers. And that committee then really reports to the foundation board, and they're the ultimate say-so in kind of what we do. But the idea is that with this committee that we can get together questions or ideas, suggestions for improvements, or things that we probably should be standardizing or trying to make consistent between the camps, and figure out the best way to handle those things. So we met at the national meeting last fall and went over a number of topics. And this fee thing happened to be one of the ones that was kind of a big question to start with. But I think the big question then comes in is to, what is the direction of how we get our information? And so I think the idea here is that we get any of us that have suggestions or ideas of how to change a camp or have questions about what we should be doing, that the Teachers Camp Committee can address those and try to share that with all the camps and ensure that the ideas are spread around among all the camps. So, you know, one of the first things I think that probably helps all of us, Peg, from these slides that you put together is that next one where it really talks about where do you find the information. You know, I will admit to being old enough that, you know, I'm computer challenged, so when everybody tells me it's on the internet, that's telling me to find the needle in the haystack. So and they did a really nice job here of laying out, so where is this stuff? And some of the best practices and things that we do with the camp are out on the website. And if you go to ASM's website and then you go to the Education Foundation and look, you know, since we're dealing here with educators, if you look under educators on the left-hand side, and then go to under the educators, and then from the educators, I think we go from there to best practices or the governance, depending on whatever areas under the volunteers. That's where a lot of the information is at, and that I think gives us a pretty good starting spot of how to find things and what it is, how we run the camps, or at least should be striving to run our camps. You know, that said, I think you know, when you go as a master teacher and you go do different camps, every camp is different, every location is different, and so there's some constraints or opportunities that are better or different, at least at each camp, and you have to work with that. Some camps have much better opportunities, say, for really good tours, and so you need to fit that into the schedule. Here in Kansas City, we get part of our funding from the local cement industry, and so we've gotten real interested in doing studies, you know, doing some experiments with cement as a material, and we take a second tour in the evenings to go see one of the cement plants. And so that's just a way that we could fit more in than we really had time for. But, you know, and we're doing that, one, because it's really neat information, but it also helps with our fundraising efforts to adjust. And so you have to be kind of sensitive to those things with each camp. But I think this one that really started this was a question of what about some kind of fee, because I think at a number of camps, I know I was struggling here in Kansas City with the question being that you accept your 30 teachers and you think you're all set, and then on the first day of camp, you have some number of no-shows. And what is it we're going to, you know, how do we address that? And so, you know, we thought about, well, we could charge for the camp, but gee, one of the things we know from the surveys of the camps is one of the big things the teachers tell us is the fact that the camp is free is extremely important. And so, you know, we thought going from free to charging might really hurt with the number of teachers that were interested in attending. And since those of us who organize the camps are the ones that are struggling sometimes to find the teachers to come, you know, that became a recruiting problem and that we really wanted to try to avoid. So then the idea was, well, maybe some kind of a refundable fee, with the idea being that kind of like when you commit to buy a new car, if you say, yeah, you know, they wanted a deposit that applies to the price of the car, you know, we thought, well, maybe that would work. And so we talked about that a lot, and how much should that be, because some of our camps have housing provided, which the camp has to pay for whether the teacher shows up or not. All of us have the expense of arranging for food and supplies and all of that, and so there's a lot of costs associated with no-shows. And so we debated all kinds of different numbers, and you know, but then you think, okay, but this is also coming out of the teacher's pocketbook, so you have to consider that. So there was really a lot of discussion about what's reasonable, and part of that really came down to this question too, that okay, maybe at some camps it's not reasonable to have a refundable fee. Maybe that's, you know, too big a hassle. So it's still kind of up to the individual camp. Is that something that you want to do? But the idea was to at least get the a system laid out and a procedure so that if you wanted to have a fee to get the teachers committed to being there, they would kind of have a mechanism for that. And from that, Gene put together a flow chart that said, okay, here's how it would work, and here's how the fees would get collected, and then the checks to the camp, so that at the end of the week, the teachers that have been there, you could return their check so that it in fact really didn't cost them anything. So that's just kind of an idea of how we did that. We thought it maybe provides a mechanism so that if a fee is an advantage for your camp, that there's a way to do it. But it doesn't really say that you have to do that. It just leaves it as kind of an option. But that's, so anyway, that's kind of the idea of what the Teachers Camp Committee, the kind of things that, that committee is there to help with and provide some guidance, or at least help structure things in a way that the camps can run better. But that was kind of, I guess, the information I wanted to get out there. I don't know if there's questions or thoughts, or, because...
How much was the fee that some of the camps are using?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How much money was the fee when people did decide to use a fee?
It was, this is Jean. It was $50 was suggested, and only one camp decided to go ahead with it, and that's the Houston Teachers Camp.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And we're still here in Kansas City. In the end, we decided not to go ahead with it this year, but I think, we're still looking at the whole idea, and we were just, in the end, we got a little concerned about would it affect our recruitment, so we decided to wait another year, but I think we still have an interest in developing that a little bit more and still proceeding with it, but we wanted to really look at it a little more before we jumped into it.
As the organizer for the Chicago Regional or DeKalb Camp, whichever name you want to use, I decided, I already had publicity out saying free, and so I said, I'll wait until I see how the rest of the country does, and I'll make my decision for next year. Well, sorry, that's not going to work with one camp.
Well, and
we'll learn something from Houston, but
and that's really the same issue we had here in Kansas City, is that when we thought about it, we, after a lot of discussion with people here at the university and in our local chapter, it came down to the question of, we keep saying free all over, and then all of a sudden we say send in a check, and that was the very thing that encouraged us to think about it another year, because we thought, wait a minute, that might not be a good thing. So that's what we're looking at here too.
I heard our positions or feelings that saying we really should be charging for the camp in any case to make it seem worthwhile, and that's a interesting debate. Do we charge $100 and return $50? Or
yeah, I think that whole issue is something the committee is, we've thought about some. I think the big thing, for most of us that are either at a university or in the engineering community, a lot of us don't, or at least I didn't really think about that these funds really tend to come right out of the teacher's pocket. Most of the school districts, at least in our part of the country, the school districts do not pay these fees to the teachers anymore. And so, it really got to be that question of how big is the recruiting problem going to be if you actually charge the teacher.
I'm under the impression that some school districts are paying.
Yeah, I think that's very much a regional issue and depends on the economy and different school districts. That's really a hard one to judge, because it seems as though some do and some don't.
It'd be interesting to survey how many, get the statistics on it.
Bob, this is Julio Maldonado. I just like to chime in on this issue since I'm here in the Houston chapter. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the reasons that the Houston chapter decided to implement the deposit, refundable deposit, was because in the past we had more people trying to attend the camp that had to go on a waiting list, and kind of unjust for them to not be able to participate due to the fact that somebody just decided not to attend at the last minute. And we actually had problems with this issue in deciding whether or not we should be charging that fee, that refundable fee. But at least we wanted to give it a try this year, and we'll see how that goes. And I guess it will be a lesson for the rest of the country.
Did you put a limit to saying it's fully renewable or returnable if you cancel before a month ahead of time?
I don't remember specifically what we put down at the end, because in this camp, maybe Jean, do you have any information on that?
Yes, we do. There's cancellation, I think 4 weeks or 3 weeks prior to, then we'll return their money. But I will verify that and confirm that with after the meeting, and I'll send the documentation to everybody. But yes, there is.
This is Aziz. May I make a suggestion? Because the goal is to make sure those who sign in will attend to the best of their ability unless there's a medical issue or something else. Would it help, as you're considering asking for fees in some of the camps, would it help if any teacher applying should have a letter of approval or recommendation from the school superintendent or the principal? The reason is that will bring commitment to a notch higher in terms of the teacher asking to attend. And if that teacher cancels within the 3 weeks cancellation period, you may have the opportunity to go to the principal and ask if some other teacher want to come as a replacement.
Well, in our case, we would have the whole point of the exercise was also to continue in accepting more people into the camp, or at least having in a waiting list, and so that once somebody decided would let us know that they would not be able to attend, then we would have somebody else to fill in that spot.
My plan at this time is I'm going to overbook a play date like the airlines.
Well, that's a good problem to have sometimes. And we can talk a bit about also what our experience has been for the past 8 or 9 years that we've done the camp here in Houston. Every time our goal has been to have 30 students, but I think the most students that we've seen at one time it's been 23. So that's been about the average of students that show up. Now we have an interesting situation too, in that the university and the local facilities that we employ are somewhat limited, and I think a number of 25 is probably ideal. At least that's my own opinion. Okay, I don't know if somebody else in the Houston chapter will have other opinions, but it just seems to me that because of the limitations on the facility in terms of space, that's probably a good number for us to have. In addition, we also do offer a stipend to the teachers. And I see that as a more, I guess, a stronger way of getting teachers to commit and attend. But you'll be surprised that in many cases, teachers, once they are attending, they are, at the end, when we are distributing checks to them, they're the first ones that are pleasantly surprised that there's money in there for them. At least to cover some of their fuel expenses and so on, because in Houston, being that we are commuting camp, some of these teachers are coming from far away distances, and gas prices the way they are right now, you know, a little bit of money there also helps.
Julio, how much do you distribute?
We give a $250 stipend to each attendee.
And Julio, just to note that the stipend is not from the camp budget. It is actually from the chapter budget through a fund that you put together in honor of one of your.
That is correct. So one of our past chairman of the chapter, Ken Fordyce, he was a very strong advocate for education and so on. So we actually have put some money together, and every year we also do fundraising so that we can keep up that commitment of offering the stipend to the teachers. But yeah, as Gene was saying, this is a Houston chapter commitment, and we do it out of our own funds. And later on, as we continue doing this presentation, I can maybe share with you some of the numbers that we commit in total to the camp.
One question I have, I know that Chicago DeKalb, a good number is that it's costing us on the order of $18,000 after, for continuing camps. How does that compare with other sites?
Is the $18,000 what's out of pocket for you, or does that include the names and all the charges that people are paying? That becomes ASM Foundation, that becomes a chapter, that becomes a fundraising, and in our case, the university is contributing on the order of $4,000 or $5,000. Well, about $4,000 a year in free food and copying and things like that. I'm not talking about space rental. I'm talking about out-of-pocket costs of the university. Okay. For the Houston chapter, the number is around $25,000.
Okay.
I think Pittsburgh's about $15,000.
Who was that?
Bob Wachowski from Pittsburgh. Helping to organize the one who I think I'm estimating it to be about $15,000.
Youngstown's about $15,000.
Akron's about $18,000.
Chicago is 15.
This is Gwen Nash. I think the registration fee, $50, is very reasonable, and this will make teachers committed to the teachers camp, and I think this will reduce the no-show numbers. It may not eliminate, but it will reduce, and especially if offer free education, I think $50 is very reasonable registration fee.
This is Nick from Calgary. We've run a camp up here for a little while. Off and on, we've had a couple one-day camps. We've had a couple 5-day camps, 4-day camps. The adage of you get what you pay for. If you pay nothing, you get nothing is the mentality that is quite common in the minds of people. So if you charge $50, you realize there may be some value in this.
Mm.
This is Dan Denny's the Los Angeles camp we've been running for about 8 years. And we actually have this discussion every year with the teachers. And I think that's something that maybe we ought to do on an official basis is every year, this year, every camp ought to have a 5-minute conversation and just ask the teachers, if we had charged you $50, would you be here? Even if we gave it back to you, if we charged you $50, would you be here? I think that's a survey that we can all do and get the information firsthand from the teachers, because in our experience, and this is very just to Los Angeles, mind you, we have this discussion every year, and the teachers have told us that if we charge $50, they wouldn't come. And basically, they are looking for programs that give them money. They're looking for programs that offer stipends. And so even though the camp is free, that's not first on their list. Their first on their list is to find a camp that actually offers money to them in a way of a stipend. A free camp would of course be second, and then a camp they have to pay for would then come in third. But I think we could get a better concept how this works across the nation. I think we should, everybody, I mean, it takes about 5 minutes to have this conversation, really, with the teachers. We bring it up every year to find out if this was a smart, and it's the reason why we chose not to do it, is we bring it up every year, and they tell us that if you had charged $50, I would not be here.
Well, you can put it on to your camp evaluation. I know at the end of our camps, we have the teachers fill out, you know, how could we improve, what did we like, what did you like, how did you find out about us, and, you know, those kind of questions. And that just becomes another question is, if this was cost $50, would you come? Would you have your friends come?
This is Chuck.
You know, in an evaluation, you don't get the ferocity that these teachers respond with. Money is such a hot button issue with teachers that I think I would recommend having a discussion, because I think when you see the look in their faces when this conversation comes up, I don't think an answer on an evaluation will provide that same impression.
Jane, would it be possible for you to scan through the Houston response thus far? Do we know how many teachers actually have turned in their deposit?
We can check that and send it after the teleconference is over.
Okay.
How is registration this year compared to previous years across the country?
This is Chuck Hayes. I would say it's about average.
Thank you.
Can you put a number to that?
Yeah, we have something in the neighborhood of 400 registrations so far.
Well, it's Winston Reevy here from the Ottawa camp. We considered the deposit of $50 business and decided against it. It sounded as though there was going to be some work keeping track of the checks that were sent in, and it didn't seem that there was going to be a point to it really here in Ottawa. We always do get a few no-shows, but I think that maybe that could be addressed, you know, by just keeping in touch with the teachers before they come, and maybe a month before, and then 2 weeks before, and a week before. If they haven't confirmed, then you know, they're probably not coming if they haven't confirmed. But it hasn't been a big problem here. Last year we were overbooked at one point. I think we had 33 or 34 people signed up, and then in the end I think we had 27 or 28 people who attended.
I'll back up the statement of contact. I know that was a strong thing that reduced the number of no-shows I had in Chicago the second year compared to the first year when I did follow up with the people before camp.
And it's fairly easy to keep in touch with people, you know, through email. We've got their email addresses. You know, just send them an email and ask them to confirm that they're actually going to be here.
Well, I also use it for recruiting next year's camp. So once I have the email all set up, it's easy to say, hey, tell your friends about it for next year.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the strategies that we use here in the Houston camp. I don't know if we are following the order. Peggy, it's up to you. You want to continue?
Yeah, I'm actually starting to look at the clock because of Aziz's flight. So I wonder, since we're already kind of talking about money, can we skip ahead to fundraising and then come back?
Sure.
So Aziz can share his ideas? Okay.
Go ahead, Aziz. I guess Aziz would have to then.
Okay. Thank you. And in terms of the fundraising, everyone is aware that there are many stakeholders for getting a successful materials camp, and it all comes down to really individuals, that is specifically dedicated, committed individuals. However, what I did, and you have that within the package for the webinar, there are 4 slides showing, not excluding individuals, but while focusing on individuals, there are other entities that help make successful camps. Definitely the chapter, university, host university, which is not always, because we have some camps without a host university involved, could be community college and others. And then the last one is really companies within the vicinity that are interested in it. And I tried to put together, this is with the help of Ginny, and visiting with about 16 different chapters within the U.S. that had camps. What is in it for those entities? So I'll leave that for you to look at, see if this is applicable. By the way, these represent the positive feedback. I want to mention to you there were also negative feedback, but really not that negative. The negativity was they can't find as many volunteers as they need to, let's say, from the chapters, as well as it's time-consuming, and there's a cost associated with it. So I only try to put what would be positive, representing benefit. Now, with all of the question is how we go about raising funds. So after explaining benefits to entities, you will be talking, not necessarily the individuals, how we raise the funds. What I would like to summarize with is, and this is related to table number 4, which is the talking point. First of all, what we have is a very compelling case. We're tied to a major initiative nationwide, but also almost worldwide, how we get students interested in science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM. So we're tied to that, but the point to remember is not only one tied to STEM education outreach. There are many other entities doing great jobs. The question would be, why I should support the ASM Materials Camp? What's so unique about it? 2 things are unique about it. That is, we have metrics. We measure the impact. How many kids try to or signed in engineering, science, or how many teachers used the hands-on modules. So in a way, we kept as best as we can metrics of the impact of those camps, and it's a positive story. And the other aspect of it, in that, in addition to the impact, this is something that is based on getting hands-on type experiments to get the kids interested, as well as helping teachers illustrate science concepts. It's that hands-on, discovery-based learning that is kind of unique to the ASM camp, using materials as gateway to get kids interested in science and engineering. So these are the talking points. Having said that, and it's a positive case, how would you then connect with people who would be interested in supporting the initiative that you have? First of all, as I said, it starts with individuals. You have a good example, for example, here I heard, I'm sorry if I missed some of the people, but you have Julio, you have Peg, you have Al Aguirre, who committed personal money in support of camp that came from chapters as individuals. So you really need first to work with the chapter executive committee, if a camp is to within a chapter, to see that they are committed to financially support the idea of running a camp. The second part would be to get the chapter to support, because you always have the support from the foundation, but you're going to need that individual dedication and support, but also the chapter support. And you have many examples of successful ones, as I mentioned, whether at NIU or in Michigan or in Houston, as well as many other places. Dan Denny is another individual supporter, and also he works to see if the chapter can help. Now, within those approach, what we could help you with, and I left it at the bottom end of this talking point, connectivity. That is, if you're visiting with a company in the vicinity, you would like to show them the impact that this company can have in getting kids in their neighborhood involved. So the best thing would be to connect with Gene and Ginny and find out, let's say you're going to company X, how many students within that plant location have gone to camps from that school system, or how many teachers, again, went to that camp. So we could help you with personal names to make it a personal type approach, that connectivity. The other one is coordination. What we also could help you with, we have list of over 400 donors. We could find out from those donors how many are connected to your own chapter. That is, they have donated directly to the foundation or donated in the past. Ginny can help you with that. So let's say if you're going to company X, we could help you with students and teachers that donated to the camp in that, that graduated from that camp. But also we could look at individuals that may have come from that company and had donated money to the camp or to the materials camp and to the foundation overall. So these are very quick, a few minutes summary of at least approaches to fundraising. I'm practicing that right now with a brand new camp to start in Indianapolis, where we started first to see that the individuals who are interested, committed, that they're going to contribute, then to see if their executive committee is going to contribute. They all spoke on behalf of the chapter. They said the chapter is committed with $5,000. And now our following that would be to see if at least 3 major companies where those members are members of those companies, employees, going to come through. So we're trying to practice that approach, at least in this case, with one example in Indianapolis. And I'll be glad to answer questions if someone wanted to get into more details.
Well, it's Winston here. Thank you, Aziz, for running through that. I just had one question about the website. In running through these slides on this call here, I did see on the right-hand side of the screen the names of 2 companies. There was Honda and Lockheed Martin. Now, to get their name and their banner up on the website, what do they need to do for that?
Honda donated $2,500 at the time. And Lockheed Martin, they donate usually about $20,000 for the Albuquerque camp. And these were done as soliciting foundations, the Honda Foundation, and as well as soliciting Lockheed Martin via Sandia. And that was based on ASM members who were also or on the foundation. How they got their name there, I'll leave that up to, I don't know, Ginny, Jean, or Chuck to explain why only them. Because we also have ONR, the Office of Naval Research. We have many other companies. We have Caterpillar, for example. But the idea at Caterpillar, we don't see their money coming directly to the foundation. It goes to the chapter and to the... Do you have an answer, or Ginny?
I think we lost you a bit there, Aziz. You're sort of cutting out. The sound is not coming through.
This is Chuck Hagan. And how people get on the website, it's a constantly changing list. So we've been just trying to feature some of our major donors that way.
I mean, it would be great to add, for example, ASME, the pipe division, as a donor, but we didn't see it directly. In a way, it went to the Canadian chapter, and as such, we were kind of blind, and we couldn't advertise them. We'll be glad, because that will and we also advertise NACE, by the way, in many of the monthly one-pager ad that we put in the foundation, in AMP.
Well, what we do in Canada here, you know, we've got the ASM Materials Camp Canada, and they're the administrator for both the Calgary and Ottawa camps. And so, to the extent that it's possible, we have the donations come directly to ASM Materials Camp Canada.
Well, that is great, but to recognize them, maybe we should depend on you sending us a note saying, here's something about this organization, would you please add them to your website?
Yeah, we should do something like that. We should get them some profile.
One of the important things about fundraising is not just asking for the donation, and they keep repeating that as 101 fundraising, is this thank you and the recognition of the donors. So if you could help us so we could do a better job in recognizing these donors, it will be great.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, I think that's great. Like I think that every year they publish a magazine, and then of course there's category. and the people under the category how much they donate, right? Like 10,000 to 20,000. So that way people know and they be recognized and appreciate it. I think it is important that don't.
For example, what we could do at the MSNP is list all the donors of that year. I know NACE did that where they listed what would they call like a platinum level or a gold level or a nickel level or a copper level. And it was in the main entrance of the show, individuals and the companies. Now, we could do something like that, again, as a suggestion, as a recognition and a thank you note, and that list can be maybe added to the AMP at the end of the year on the part of the foundation, thanking everyone. Again, these are all part of the thank you that we're trying our best to recognize the people and thank them individually via response letters, acknowledging the amount for this purpose. And we could, I'm sure we're open to do more based on whatever suggestions you make that help us recognize the donors.
Sure. In the Houston chapter, we have given in the past flags to the primary contributors. So we have different levels of sponsorship, all the way from a sponsor a T-shirt type, which is $500 donation, to $5,000, which will be our gold sponsor. And based on those, then flags are given to the companies and representatives. The other thing I also try and do whenever we had any leftover polo shirts from the camp, I have personally distributed those to the person responsible for donating the money or getting the paperwork routed through the companies to get this achieved, because many times it's a matter of paperwork.
Well, I'll take it then as an action item is to figure out a way on kind of recognizing and thank you notes. But the main thing is we cover first from a taxation viewpoint all those that donate money. We recognize them. They could use it, individual or entity. But what I would like to close with is what do you need in terms of the first step, that is how to get the money in. Don't worry, we'll always come up with the best way to thank them for it. But first, how are we going to get the money in to support the camps? That's what I try to summarize for you, and if you need more details or even assistance, let us know, and we'll try our best to help you in terms of your locality fundraising.
Well, I'll add one thing from a Chicago DeKalb perspective, and that was sort of passing the hat at the monthly chapter meeting where you actually really ask the people, here's what we're doing. We'd like your support. We're not particularly concerned with the dollar value that you donate, but that we have the support of the people. And I would say more than half of my donors come that way.
In Houston, we have something similar in that we have also a local chapter directory, and from people that are the advertisers in that directory, those will become then the primary targets for receiving letters from us. But it's not just a letter that's going to do the trick. You have to make that personal phone call and make use of your personal relationship. This is where the individuals play a major role. You have to have somebody that's driven to do this on their own time, because it's a time-consuming deal. But if you have a couple of people in your chapter or in the community that will assist you in doing this, then the more successful you are going to be in getting that money in.
Question, do you send the letter first or the phone call first? Personally, I have sent the letters first, and then I follow them by a phone call. Make sure that in the letter it says, I will be calling you and discussing details later or something like that, something to that effect. So that's essentially what I've done myself in the past. Yeah. The other thing was when we were short of money, a month or two before, then you send out saying, hey, the letter that says We need help.
Yeah.
And
that's
got a reasonable amount of money.
Yeah, I was gonna say that you know, I like spreadsheets and stuff. So as a good engineer, so I keep track of how many times I talk to somebody, or maybe even at the local meetings, at the chapter meetings, and giving them reminders and so on. Like I said, many times, especially for bigger companies, it's a matter of tracing that paperwork or tracking that paperwork that's needed to get that money from approved from wherever it needs to come down to.
Yeah, in Chicago, I end up actually having a pledge card. I have a half sheet of paper which says, I plan to donate, and here's my name. And I give them 2 copies, one for them to give me back and one for them to say, send the money into ASM Foundation.
Can we donate money through online?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we've learned how to do that now.
Yeah, but because I found out my kids' school, and they send me email once in a while, and the teacher will say, this is a project I'm working on, and I need this amount of money. And then once you donate, on the side there's a bar, and you show how much money is going there. Is it 10% or 20%? In a way, you know that, and also after they receive all the money, fulfill their budget, and they will get back to us, say, this is the result. So in a way, they let donor know the money you contribute, and then they also tell you the result, the money you spent. So
that would be a good idea, because you could put it on your chapter newsletter, and everybody sees that, and they've got an opportunity right there to say something.
Yeah.
They can get a reminder back saying.
That will work well with individual contributors, but when we're talking about companies where, you know, the really good chunks of money are going to come from, probably not as effective.
Yeah. May I close with just a final comment in that, and that came up from what Al had mentioned, as well as Julio and others, Guiru and the others. Basically, if it's a brand new camp, I summarize the example of working with Indianapolis chapter. So we'll learn more, and I'll keep you updated if there's any progress or a success at that approach. For an existing camp, the best thing is, and Al has a summary of how he is going about raising funds. Remember, your past donors are the key people. Even though some people say we can't go all the time to them, I would urge you first to consider your past donors and to basically tap into them again, saying, here's this year camp and we need your help again. And you'll probably have a pretty high probability of success, especially if you could tie that approach to the past donors with showing them the impact they made on personal individuals that they know about, connected with, like a local school teacher or a local student that presentation. So that's the first step. The second step would be, how can you create new donors? Either they donated before and they haven't done any donation the last 2 years, or brand new donors. This one is where you could use the talking point and make a case, at least for each specific company, either based on the fact they can get future employees, or they are making a good outreach to their community. So with that, again, if we could be of any assistance, definitely Ginny is in charge of all of that. She's here speaking on her behalf. She can help you. I'll try to help. Chuck will try to help, as well as Gene. But that also look up the letter or the note from Al on how he's doing that for the NIU Camp 2012. He has the details based on the past 2 years' experience. And it has been successful. He's been generating a little bit of a surplus, not a lot, but at least a positive one in his approach to fundraising.
Well, it's going to be the method that we may be able to get a second camp. By the way, there's an L in Swiglo. That's W-I-G-L-O.
It's Winston here again. If we were going to sort of standardize what we call the different levels of contributions, I think here we have contributors that are called patrons, benefactors, sponsors, and supporters, and all this. It might be worthwhile to standardize this across all the camps, so that if there's a sort of a centralized recognition that goes up on the website, there'd be a standardized approach.
I like the precious metals, gold, silver.
Got gold, silver, and platinum, and all this.
So the Olympics.
Winston, I've been reusing that the way I look at where to put emphasis. I have anything that is less than $100, then 100, 500, then up to 1,000, then 5,000. The reason is, at least last year's calculation, about 84% of the donation, which total about $700,000, came from about 25 people, roughly. I can't remember, 25 or 28 people. Those are the people that definitely day in, day out, I have them memorized, so I can make sure that over 80% of the donation happen from year to year based on those major donors. The others is more of encouraging them, even if it's $1, we are always thankful for that. So we could, again, this is another action item, is how you look at recognition and categorize it. But again, closing, please keep in mind your major donors who donated before will always continue to donate if you're showing them the impact that it makes to them and to the locality. That's probably the best action item you can take in addition to getting individuals involved with as much as they can afford.
You can show people that you're doing good things with their money, they'll respond. I was very favorably impressed. I passed the hat, and I had one student, a college student, filled out a thing and then sent me a nice little note saying that I'm a student, I can't afford much, but here's $5. That was just as good as, those 500s.
Yep. Well, with your permission, I'm going to sign off. I'm sorry about that. I tried to get on the Internet, and I wasn't able to do it. The Holiday Inn, I didn't have access to it.
That's all right. Thank you very much, Aziz.
Thank you, Peggy, and good luck. And that was a great gesture to start the webinar. And thank you for that.
Okay, thanks.
Safe trip.
Okay. Well, I wanted to share real briefly a couple things that I've put together. In the how-to guidelines on the web, there's a little trifold brochure about Teachers Camp. Jean and Jenny were kind enough to email it to me, and I adapted it for our local camp. So I get these printed up, and they're handy to pass out at chapter meetings and events, and you can also email them to potential donors. So this is where I'm recognizing our local sponsors. And then it just talks about what is the camp, and then we talk about how is it funded. We've got some of the stats for how successful it is, some local testimonials and pictures. And then the other thing that I got from Jean and Jenny that I think is great is a list of people in Michigan, where the teachers are who have attended, and then they were able to make this nice plot for me. So as I'm recruiting funding from around the state, I can show them, here's a whole cluster of teachers around your area.
Is that something that's available to all of us? Because I like that picture. I'd like to do it, obviously, for my local area. But.
Sure,
so,
we can work on that.
Okay.
Well, it would be very interesting for Ottawa, the Ottawa camp, to have a map like that.
Well, one thing is where the donors come from, and the other one is where do the teachers come from. I got a problem that I got a geographic area that's supplying half of my teachers coming to the camp, but none of the money.
Yep.
I'm working
so Bob
on it.
Hanlon, we loved your concrete experiments in Ann Arbor last year. They were great. Okay.
Good.
So
I'm glad they worked out okay.
Yes, it was wonderful. Let me go back to here. And then I also put together examples from my files of a cover letter that I'd written to potential donors, and then we send out a donation form every year to chapter sustaining members. So this is similar to what other people are doing.
We have a similar letter here in Houston that I could share with the rest if you are interested. We actually have taken the approach of one of the things that one of our biggest fundraising activities for the chapter is a annual golf tournament, and we've taken some of the ideas for recognition of sponsors from that.
Mm-hmm.
So, like in a golf tournament, you can say sponsor a hole or whatever. In this case, we start with sponsor a teacher and then sponsor a hands-on lab activity. So again, we cover 500, 1,000, 1,500, 3,000, and 5,000. So you just have to be a little creative, but you know, as far as standardizing, I don't think that'll be very hard to do, and maybe a good way of promoting and getting sponsors.
Yeah, a set of the letters in Word, you know, so that we can. Because I'm a plagiarist. I'm not embarrassed by taking other people's words and seeking money.
Yep, that's one of the things that I wanted to accomplish.
You know, some of them are quite similar to each other. I've customized mine to my various audiences, but
okay.
I'm always looking for new ideas.
We can share that. It's not a problem.
Yeah. So I've been trying to make notes for action items as we go, and I think if we can email things to Jeannie and Ginny, they can work on getting them posted to the website so that we could use them.
Picking them off the website, I don't know how well you can, well, some things, but like these letters, you're not going to be able to plagiarize out of them easily.
We can just use the emailing list for this invitation today, right? And just distribute.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Actually, we don't have to give any more word to Jean.
Okay. All right. Where do we want to go next? Anything else on fundraising?
Peg, this is Chuck Hayes. I'd just like to offer a few thoughts on the whole idea of fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's vital that the appeal for charitable contributions be a direct and personal communication. While I recognize the importance of sometimes an introductory letter and a phone call follow-up, I think it's without question that you get a much stronger response, much higher degree of giving when you can find the time, and I know it's hard, to go and see prospective donors or donor companies. The fact that you're willing to spend the time to go to see them says a lot about your commitment to the cause. And it's been my experience that more often than not, when you sit down, you're talking eyeball to eyeball with a potential donor, that you're more likely to get a positive response. You know, we all get emails that we delete and letters that we throw away. We all get direct mail solicitations at home. And the degree to which you can go and see prospective donors and talk with them for 10 or 15 minutes, I think there's no question you'll get a higher response rate and larger gift.
Mm-hmm.
And the phone calls somewhere in between.
Yes.
Chuck, this is Mario Epler. I have a quick question. Do you see that you get better traction if you have someone internal to a company go and request funds, or having someone external from the company requesting funds? And the reason I ask that is we rely heavily on our company, Carpenter, to support ASM, whether it be what I would call in-kind, allowing our employees at the company to be involved with things like the camp and spending time organizing and attending the camp. And I wonder sometimes if we come internally and ask them for money, if that's the best approach or if there's a better way.
I think without a doubt, having internal employees working within their company to solicit the gifts is the best approach.
It is because that person will know exactly who they need to be talking to.
And there's credibility. You're a part of the team already. You're a part of the company. I wouldn't be asking you if it weren't important. I think having an internal person do it is always best.
Hi, this is Suneva Collins. Our experience on this has definitely been that we've gone to various company foundations here in the Cleveland area and have been basically told that unless there is somebody from their company on our executive committee, they don't see the connection. So for many of these company foundations, they want to make sure that they are supporting something in which they actually have somebody involved at a pretty high level. So based on that, we've actually, tried to recruit people for our executive committee based on where we feel we can get some of these funds.
This is Dan Denny. I'm going to follow up Suneva's with a slight twist. When I was with the Boeing company, one of the things they wanted to see was that the local area where the camp was being held, that there was a company presence in that area, and it's a slight twist of what Suneva's talking about. Instead of having someone on the committee, they actually wanted to know that employees, teachers, or their teachers of the kids, that there was a direct relationship from an employee standpoint, that there's a possibility the company was going to see benefits, or the company employees would see benefits because there's a presence in that specific area. So that's just a slight twist over what Suneva's talking about.
Well, depending on the size of the company, each company has a commitment to the local community in terms of education and other issues, social issues that they want to show that they are involved. And I think that's probably what works best in terms of convincing a company or representative of a company that donating to a camp like Heroes Camp makes also business sense in a social sense. So making use of those personal relationships that you develop through the local chapter, or maybe just through doing business with the different entities within your community, that's a very succinct and straightforward way of finding people to talk to.
Mm-hmm. Ginny, this is Peg. Ginny shared something interesting with me. A lot of us are only connected into the engineering organization, and I know here at GM we have no funds in engineering to do things like Teachers Camp. We used to have a slush fund, but those days are long gone. So Ginny pointed out a good place to seek funding is actually in human resources or in whoever does your public relations, because they're more likely to have a budget for community outreach.
Yeah, public relations is the key one, at least for Chevron.
Marketing.
And we're talking about the community involvement and so on.
I think, this is Chuck Hayes, I think one of the tactics for corporate solicitation locally is try to learn from whomever you can talk to within your company, be it HR, marketing, or the executive office. Ask them, what is the maximum amount of funds you can allocate within your discretion before it requires a formal proposal, a website-based proposal, or a review by a committee, and try to find out what's the maximum discretionary amount they have and ask for that.
As well, this is Nick from Calgary. There are certain timing limitations on this also, because most companies will set aside a certain amount for marketing, for publicity, for what, but there are a certain amount of funds, and you have to hit them at the right time, soon enough, because if you wait too long, that money will have been spent, so they'll always come back to you and say, oh, maybe next year. You have to get there.
Yeah, I would second that comment, because I think in many cases that's a very important point to be made, especially for larger companies, that you need to be thinking way ahead of time of your camp in terms of fundraising, you need to be thinking at least 1 year ahead of time. And that time frame may change depending on who you're trying to reach. And one of the key points to be made is that as you contact people and so on, they will definitely let you know when the best time frame for them to start the process is, and then you just put a reminder in your calendar and go back to them, because people get busy and they'll forget. I mean, that also happens to us in terms of recruiting when we're trying to use the previous attendees to camp as a resource to get all the teachers to apply to the camp. So again, it's just one of those things that happen, and you need to have a way of reminding them of the time when it is best for them to start the process.
You know, it's Winston here. That's a really important point, you know. A lot of companies, if they have a fiscal year that starts in January, they will start their budgetary planning in the previous summertime. And if you can get into the budget then, you know, you've got the money sort of set aside, you know. So that's starting about 6 months early, 6 months before the start of their fiscal year could be a consideration.
There's other topics on the agenda. We probably have the choice of either having another webinar or moving on to some of these other topics.
Yep. Where do you guys want to go next?
I'd like
This is Dan Dennis. I'm going to have to sign off. I'll say goodbye on this one.
Okay.
I got another meeting I got to get to. All right. Bye.
Could I just say, how do the different camps use volunteers? That would be an interesting thing to discuss. I'd like to know how the other camps...
I can tell you the Houston chapter experience for every session. So for every day, this is a week-long camp, commuting camp over here. So for every... At the teachers camp, yeah. For every half session, we try and have at least 2 of the local volunteers to work along with the master teachers, and also just provide support and then talk about their experience and so on. And take maybe 5 minutes or so to describe what they do and how it is connected and so on to the material. And I mean, that's been our approach. And in the past, we promoted that through our local chapter meetings and also in our mass emailings to our membership. And every year we had more volunteers than we needed. So they see the connection. Most of them are very committed to the goals of the camp. And in some cases, they're doing this on their own time. It's not always necessary that the company that they work for will necessarily be sponsoring their attendance, but it is a personal commitment to education.
This is Nick from Calgary. Assign, if you have enough members on your executive, assign someone who is chair of that materials camp initiative and assign more volunteers to that person under the chair of the materials camp if required. Those people are dedicated. It is their responsibility. Therefore, everyone can't say, well, I didn't do it, I thought someone else was doing it. No, someone is pointed to as person in charge of the entire project, and you disseminate from there.
Do you, does any of the camps have short job descriptions for the volunteers?
You know, in the organizer's handbook, which is available on the website, we've tried to describe the responsibilities and tasks for those volunteers. So I think if you take a look there, you can see pretty much what you need.
Okay.
We try and make it pretty simple as far as when we reaching out for volunteers. It is because the teachers already have a pretty packed agenda, so they don't need any more commitment in terms of the volunteers to do additional stuff. It's just more of just supporting what the teachers are doing and participate with on some of the activities, hands-on activities and so on. But I think most importantly, at least in our experience, has been the fact that these people can talk about their jobs and how their jobs in materials, what the importance of that is in the overall picture. Because in many cases, teachers come to this camp without having any idea of what materials or the materials engineering is all about. So it is important that they at least get a chance to see a few of these people explaining their job and what a typical day is and so on. So that's a way of them being able to transfer that information over to their students once they go back to the classroom. One other thing that comes to mind is depending on the station or you're talking about ceramics versus metals or corrosion and so on, we try and also get people that maybe have a little bit of background in those particular areas, so that there's a connection also with the teaching agenda for that particular day. But it's not a must. It's just it's a good thing to do if you are able to.
Well, thank you.
This is Peg Jones. One thing that we are doing in Ann Arbor is we have a plant tour, which is a whole other category of volunteers to host us. But then we also do what we call an on-campus plant tour in the evening. So we'll go through different labs, and usually the grad students are presenting their research work. So it's getting some of our future ASM professional members involved as volunteers and excited about the program, and it lets them have the spotlight. The teachers enjoy it because they get a chance to talk to students who are, just a few years past their high school students' ages to find out what that student experience is like firsthand. So that's been very popular.
I'll put that statement up out of Northern Illinois University. Just like it.
Here in Houston, we haven't had that, opportunity to use, because we are actually at the University of Houston downtown campus, which is not the main campus. So it's way away from where engineering is and so on. This is a different location. But however, we have a number of student chapters around the area that do participate with us, and they also volunteer and come in. In most cases, they're graduate students also, but again, we're not getting them in terms of or for the purpose of them explaining their research, but more of just their background in materials to make use of that experience and why they decide. One of the interesting questions that we get from teachers that are attending the camps is why did you decide to become a materials engineer? And these students are the best to be able to answer that when they're still pretty fresh to the process, like some of us, which it's been a few years since we entered the profession.
This is Kathy Harrinan from the Ann Arbor camp. One of the other things that I've tried to do with our lab volunteers as well is try to balance them out in terms of, we have some of our younger members who are called from the emerging professionals category. They've now started to come and help us out as lab volunteers, and they are just a few years out of college. So that's also a good demographic to include with your lab volunteers.
Well, and Kathy, you should also make sure that there's a baker for every camp. Kathy's famous for her homemade treats.
All spare. I'm curious as to what's working in terms of recruiting teachers. How are we getting Word of mouth is working for me, but that's going to run out pretty soon.
For the Ann Arbor camp, we use the Michigan Science Teachers Association, and they help us recruit, because if there's one email that the science teachers will open up, it is the one that comes from their organization.
I'm getting some from Illinois that way, but we have a problem that apparently some teachers are members of a national organization and some are members of a statewide, and they don't communicate well with each other.
This is Jean. We also send an email blast to all past participants with information on schedule of our current camp. And also,
that's a very good point, Jean, because I mean, we go beyond that. I mean, the email is probably good to do, but making that phone call, again, I'm going to emphasize that it's not just sending an email. In the past, I've taken my personal time to call people and remind them about their attendance to the camp and so on. Some of them are, you know, they probably, like I said before, they get into their busy lives and so on, and they kind of forget about what they committed with us as far as letting other teachers about the camp and so on. But once you remind them, it really starts them up quickly, and we really see a difference in response.
Well, here in Ottawa, we find that the recruitment is largely through the teacher conventions and teacher conferences for science teachers. There's a very large one that's held every year in Toronto, the Science Teachers Association of Ontario. There are a couple in Montreal, and also there's in Ottawa a PD Day, a Professional Development Day for science teachers. They have a whole program for that day for science teachers, and there are exhibits there. So we exhibit at all those things. And at our exhibit, we always have some information from ASM on the camps. We have our own brochure that we've prepared about the camps in Canada, and we also have some of the materials from the camps, like we have the pieces of concrete, and we have some of the Iraqi pottery pieces, and some of the things that people could be interested in, some of the plastic. And we also have a sign-up sheet. We have a sign-up sheet, and if people are interested, they can put their name and email address down there, and then we'll get in touch with them with reminders and just to follow up later on.
Calgary, we've targeted Alberta Teachers Conventions, Saskatchewan Teachers Conventions, British Columbia Teachers Conventions. We've contacted the Catholic boards, the public school boards, all of the above.
This is
Go ahead.
This is Jane. Again, on the universal announcement of our schedule or camps, we have an ad on the in the NSTA report, December, January, February, March month, and then we also, with NSTA, we have some master teachers attending NSTA conference, and of course, they plug our teachers camp there. And
what we do in Ann Arbor, sorry, Jean. What we do in Ann Arbor is when the teachers introduce themselves on the first day, one of the questions that they have to answer is, how did you learn about us? So we find out immediately on the first day where we got our population from.
Well, Jean's list shows that's a question that the teachers, when they apply,
but they don't always answer it. They don't always answer it on Jean's form. They'll tell us face to face.
Well, I've seen it pretty well out of Jean's form, telling me where they heard it from. I don't know. It may be different. I don't know.
in Northeast Ohio, this is Suneva Collins calling from Cleveland. What we have also done is we attend the local science fairs, and we found that that's actually been a really good location to identify those types of middle and high school teachers that are spending a lot of time developing their students with different types of science projects. And we've actually been able to recruit teachers through that program as well by going and judging at the science fairs and then having brochures available that we hand out at that point.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. By the way, all these comments that have been going on for the last hour and something, is the plan to distribute this as sort of minutes of some sort?
Yep.
Thank you.
I've been trying to get them into the PowerPoint.
These are great best practices. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. I hate to say this, but I have to do a best practice of going to a work meeting in about 10 minutes.
All right.
Okay.
There were two other items I think we had. One was basically arranging great tours, and then there was another one on how do you cut costs.
What do we do then?
I don't know if you want to get into that or not, but we could.
I'm soul searching because at the end of our camp we run a picnic, and with the tent and the rental chairs and tables, it gets pretty pricey. But the teachers like it, and I don't know. I've had it for 2 years, and I'm probably not going to do it this year and see what happens. But that's the thing though in terms of food is if you have a better idea of how many people are coming, we end up with excess food every time, and let's face it, we're paying for that, and so. The fewer no-shows, and maybe we should budget anticipating no-shows when we say how much food we order. I've been ordering, for a camp that I have 35 people signing up for, I order 40 meals, but I only get 25 people actually showing up, and so maybe I ought to cut it back to 25 or 30.
I have a question. Why do we have to feed them? Like, you're feeding high school kids, okay. Why would we feed teachers? They're adults. They can feed themselves.
It's a full day, though, and I mean, what we normally do at the Cleveland camp is we have a mid-morning break with coffee and muffins or something like that. And then we actually use the lunch hour in a lunch room with a speaker. Yeah. So we have that catered in order to be able to have everybody sit down, but then the speaker is usually, a professor or somebody who's working on research in the area of the topic of the day. So it's actually kind of an important thing to use those opportunities, not just to give them an informal ability to find out that there are other teachers out there like them, but then also this learning experience. Now, we did manage to cut quite a lot of cost out of the afternoon by going away from a coffee break and just bringing in snacks from Costco. You can go to Costco and for about $100 you get enough snacks to handle people for a full week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing to do is, don't make it as thorough, forget all the fresh fruit and all that stuff because that gets expensive.
Yeah. This is Chuck Hayes. I'd like to offer a couple of thoughts. With regard to ordering food for the catered luncheons and the like, it's been my experience that caterers provide 50 to 75% more food than you need per person. And there's always tremendous leftover, and you have a challenge of getting rid of leftover food, etc. So I would tend to order for maybe 75 or 80% of your estimated total attendance. Al, you said you thought you had 35 and 25 showed. If that's your numbers, then I would order for lunch for about 22, and you'll still have leftover food.
Yeah.
The second thing I'd like to mention.
The other thing I would add is that the teachers do like to network with each other. So the lunch speakers that we've been using, we have an hour for lunch, and I really try to keep my coffee talks or whatever you want to call them, luncheon talks, down to about a half hour. Because,
right, exactly.
you know, the teachers like to talk to each other. That's their chance to commiserate, tell war stories.
This is Alan from New Orleans. We do something a little bit different with our speakers. What we do is we get industry so that they can see, they're seeing the academia and a lot of the stuff that we're doing and teaching, but it gives them contacts with people from oil and gas and from other applications of it, so they can actually see what the other careers are other than just in the education field.
Yeah, we had one speaker last year that was very knowledgeable about the Japanese nuclear problem, and everybody liked that one.
Yeah, you know, this is Chuck Hayes. I think it's wise for the lunches that are a group format where you're catering it in, that if you have an hour allocated for the lunch, I think it's wise to limit the guest speaker to 30 minutes and to give the participants 30 minutes of free time. One of the best sources for your guest speakers can oftentimes be your donors. The donor companies and organizations that are supporting your camp would love an opportunity to come and talk about their business and their view of the universe for 30 minutes.
Yeah. I'm going to be having, because I know there's activities trying to tie ASLE, or no, STLE, the new name, into the teachers' camps, just like NACE is. And so we'll be having a lubrication person as part of the presentation this year in Chicago.
This is Dan Dennis. I do have one comment about the where you go. One of the things that we had a lot of teachers come to us is, you know, a lot of teachers don't have kids going to university, and so we take them to a local test lab, which shows them the science of what we're doing, but also shows them jobs that kids that with just a high school education can get. And it actually became, we had 2 tours in our thing. We gave up one of them, and the one we gave up was more scientific because the teachers were more interested in what do I do with the 70% of my kids that aren't going to university. And so this gives them an option because they just don't know where to send these kids. The ones that are going to university are actually easy. They don't know what to do with the kids that are good with their hands or, you know, just not going to make it to university. They need a place to go. And this is a place where they can see machine shops, testing labs, technicians making $60,000, $70,000 a year without a university degree.
Up in Calgary, we have the entire teachers campus run at a technical school, and there they actually have a welding program. And then we have the tensile machines, we have the Instrong machines, we have even welding where they can look at the different welding. We got sand casting, the whole 9 yards. So I would see if you can use some of the local resources, and also try to gear it towards what the local, I guess, job market would be. Up here in Calgary, there's a lot of welding going on in the oil and gas industry. So we've tried to temper it and add a lot of welding into our program, which some of that stuff has to be custom made for a particular site.
We have 1 minute.
Yeah. Is there anybody running camps that are not on an academic location?
Well, ours is in a high school. It's Ashbury College. It's a
that's sort of academic. You got labs.
Okay.
I don't hear anybody saying they know of them. Okay.
I don't think they're not in a high school, community college, or a college. I think they're all in an academic facility.
Okay. I was trying to figure a way of running it where you didn't have the labs.
Oh, I think you need the labs.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Thank you for whoever put this all together.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Bye. Okay, bye.
Bye.